Hello and welcome. My name is Levi, and today I'm going to be going over my Druid Oracle Furious Bear Slam, Rampage, Walking Calamity, etc., etc. We're going to see exactly how good this thing can be. Now, there's still always room for improvement, depending on how much currency you want to be able to throw at this. But the plan is that we'll take a very in-depth dive into what this character's capable of. It will be a bit of a lengthy video, so I apologize in advance. If you guys bear with me, no pun intended. It should be hopefully very informative and hopefully maybe spark some desires to try out some bear builds. I found it to be insanely strong, and in the next minute or so, actually or less, I'm going to be showing a couple clips of me against all these Citadel bosses, and you can make up your mind for yourself right then and there if you want to continue on. And if you do, I will go into extreme detail as to what kind of gear and equipment this character wears, the support gems, the actual gems they use, the skill tree, and the ascendancy. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the fights against the Citadels and Pinnacle bosses. Alright, now wasn't that a fun time? Now that we finished that up, going from Citadel boss to Citadel boss to Citadel boss to a Pinnacle boss to another Pinnacle boss, I didn't include all of them because it would just be an insanely lengthy amount of time. So let's start off with the gear. So we'll start off this moving from left to right. So we start with the staff. If you're asking yourself, why do you use Consecrate? Well, I use Consecrate because a lot of bosses have lengthy phases. And in between phases, we're just standing around. And I want to be at max rage the entire time. So I picked up a level 20 Consecrate with plus $5 skills. And of course, if you're not aware of what Consecrate does, it gives you 5% base regen for standing on it. It reduces curse effect, and I have a passive in there, which I'll get to in just a little bit, that hopefully reduces their cooldowns or slows their cooldown. Anyway, because of the level that I have it at, it increases the effectiveness by 50%, so it's technically 7.5%, and my rage reduces my life regen, or it gives me a degen of about 8.1%. So it almost completely compensates for it, but not quite. I'll set this down in between boss phases. That's the only time when I use it. Moving onto the gloves. It's literally just a basic pair of gloves. I wanted melee skill, I wanted increased attack speed, and the increased effective socketed items. It was kind of a toss-up. It seemed pretty darn good. Of course, this is an exceptional pair of gloves, so it has the 2 sockets without the corruption. I use additional attack speed, and I use dexterity because I need to fill a void, because I need to have at least 57 dex for one of my aura gems. Moving on to the rings. The rings are really nothing special. I get physical attack damage on there. I need some attributes, and then of course is flat damage. A bunch of flat damage with a little bit of resistance, but I mostly needed the attributes, and I need to have the physical attack damage as lifesteal versus life leech. That is an important piece of the build, very important. Without it, the build doesn't work. You need life leech. It's absolutely imperative. Moving on to the next ring. It's once again just more physical damage. I added life, a little more attributes, and of course just more and more damage. And of course resistances. Once again, any of the resistances that you go for, that you're working towards, it's just to fill a void. You want to try and get to that sweet spot of hitting 75 resist in all categories. I'm a little bit overcapped in each area, which is perfectly fine because there are some maps that could potentially, if you get cursed, it can reduce your resistance. Fortunately, the way that it works in PoE 2 versus PoE 1 is it doesn't just apply to you over the whole map. You actually have to get hit with the elemental weakness, which is great. Moving on. So we have our amulet. Once again, like none of this stuff is, you know, none of this stuff doesn't make sense. Like the whole idea behind it is to basically add damage and to add resistances and or durability, right? So we had some basic resistances here. I needed spirit. I needed a bunch of spirit. Could I kind of wind it up a bit more? I could, but an extra 3 spirits not going to get me anything extra. It looks like I have 30, basically 30 spare spirit. I don't. When I switch into bear form, I have one of the R's activate only in bear form. It's the one that causes the degen. So the way I'm not degenning while just standing in a base. But yeah, it's just meant to fill resistance voids and then also a significant amount of defenses. Moving on to the helmet. Helmet, same deal. I wanted a piece with as much armor as possible. Of course, like the intelligence on it was just to fill a void for the attribute requirement. I have 103. Realistically, I think I only need technically 87, so I could, in theory, remove a couple nodes. And if I wanted to optimize, I could probably be able to get rid of this by converting some strength to dexterity and converting some intel to dexterity to be able to put another rune in there. But it's late in the league. My character does enough damage. He's pretty darn good. I don't feel obligated to do such a thing this time. Originally, I had gone hard into damage taken recouped as life. I used to have it on here. I used to have a rune that would do it. I used to have damage recouped as life as part of my amulet early on, and I had a bunch in the skill tree. So I was maybe 80 or 90% damage recouped as life. And it just doesn't feel good. The problem is I don't think you get enough of a life pool to justify such a thing. My peak life was around 3,400, and 3,400 life obviously doesn't feel anywhere as good. It has 2,600 life and 6,000 ES. Now when I'm in bear form, as you can see, let's switch over. I'm at 5,100 ES, and you can look how fast my life degens. Put this down, goes back up, switch back into bear form, and unless I'm at max rage, only when I'm at max rage does it begin to slowly degen, which is perfectly fine because the phases in between bosses aren't that long, and the consecrate lasts for about 28.5 seconds. So one of the next pieces we're going to go to is the Warrior Invictus. I decided to go with this chest piece because I wanted to get as much life as humanly possible. 59 more life per socket filled. This is a 5 socket, as you can see, so it adds almost 300 flat HP. I filled them all with these wonderful percent increase soul cores, so I get 15%. It's a huge defensive bonus in that regard. Could I probably get a better chest piece that had more armor, more flat? Yes, maybe. But having up to 60% global defenses per socket filled, well, not per socket filled, but like 60% total is a significant amount of defense across the board if you begin to add it up for the boots, the gloves, and the helmet. And of course, it probably even applies to the chest piece. And then also getting another chest piece that's 45 to resist all is insanely powerful. And overall, I think dollar for dollar, like price for price, it's very competitive price-wise, because to get a T1 roll for LE resistances on a chest piece that's going to have probably 12, 13, 1400 armor or more, maybe the 400 or 500 ES, is going to be probably more expensive than 90 divs. And so that's why I decided to go with this chest piece, and it's been perfectly satisfactory, and that's why I've gone with it. Let's move on to the boots. The boots is just all about movement speed. Went as high in ES as I could and filling resistances. It was hard to find boots that had 40 to chaos res. As you can see, my chaos res is perfectly maxed. I could have probably gotten a higher tier. I know this isn't the top tier level of boots, so I probably could do a little bit better there defensively. But a lot of the top tier boots weren't running 40 to chaos, and even if they were, it's probably going to be incredibly expensive. Moving on to the talisman. Talisman, there's nothing special about it. I originally started off early league with a talisman that was probably sub 20 divs, and then moved up to 400 once I entered some currency, and then this one was about 900. I originally had this flat fizz increase in here, but the damage is extra chaos, and the increased attack damage against rare and unique monsters was about a 4.5% bump over the other stuff, and so technically this is better. And of course I went with one that had a higher base crit chance, and of course adding crit chance as a suffix makes it very strong. So my crit chance is not, I can't say it's phenomenal compared to people that have high crit chance, but it's good enough that it is more than capable of getting the job done. Moving on to some of the flask, I use Laviange's Spirit, already butchered the name. Is this the right call? Truthfully, probably not. Having a flat mana regen, not a big deal. I recover mana almost instantaneously through my maul, and it would be actually better if I could recover mana significantly faster, but I bought it early league and I've kept it for a long time. As far as the charms, I do immunity to ignite, mostly for fighting the Arbiter of Ash. The Fall of the Axe Silver Charm. This one's nice because, as you can see, whenever you get slowed, you get Onslaught, and Onslaught is, I think it's like a 20% movement speed and a 20% attack speed. We can check here. Yeah, skill speed, 10% in movement speed and 20% skill speed. So that's really strong. I use this one here. Honestly, I might be better off with just a regular magic charm. I don't need my ES to recharge when I get frozen. I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. It's pretty darn good. And I don't think you can even get enough reduced charm usage to be able to get 2 full charges. So yeah, I mean, this thing works perfectly fine. It's not very expensive. Maybe it costs, I can't remember, maybe like a div or a couple divs at the time I bought it. I use Ulroth's Flask for obvious reasons. I've regained most of my life through Life Leech. That's not a big deal. But this, you time it specifically if you know a potential big hit's coming from a map boss or a pinnacle boss, and it can allow me to be able to take the full hit. And so I basically just use this to time it just right to be able to take a maximum hit from a boss and not die. So I can just stand there, tank him, and continue to beat him into the ground. I almost missed the belt. The belt, Soul Tether, this piece was about 100 divs. The base Soul Tether is about 5, it adds 5% energy shield degen. You want to make sure you get one that is knocked off there, and you want to make sure you don't pick up one that also reduces your HP pool by 5%. And so just find some sort of attribute that's not going to be detrimental to your build. And as I said, these run about 100 divs, at least they did a couple weeks ago. And yeah, this piece is crucial to the survivability of the build. I've tried multiple ways or methods to be able to keep my ES up, and this by far surpasses all of them. I have so much Life Leech that my ES is almost max at all times while running maps. So let's go ahead and get into the skill tree. We'll start off with the Atlas here. Of course, I went Oracle. I take lesser harm. This reduces overall damage. I think the math is around 10-ish or so % reduced damage. That makes the hits unlucky. If we don't know what unlucky means, it just simply it rolls the damage twice. So let's say they do 50 damage the first time. The second time they do 40, it will pick the 40, and you take the lesser of the two. After that, Inevitable Crit. This is insanely powerful. Inevitable Crit will basically roll a crit chance. If it doesn't hit, it'll reduce. It's like 30% less, as it says there, for each time it rolls. It'll roll it again, 30% less, roll it again, 30% less, roll it again. So basically roll 3, almost 4 times. And yeah, the worst case scenario is you land a crit, but it doesn't do any bonus damage. But most of the time, you're doing at least some level of bonus damage. And so it's a very powerful tool. If you're asking yourself, why don't I path all the way to these final notables here? We're going to get to that. I started off trying out Moment of Vulnerability. The problem with this is that Moment of Vulnerability requires the enemy to be primed for stun. It's only useful for pinnacle bosses, unique bosses. Nobody else has enough HP to even justify such a thing. And prime for stun is 70% or above. Well, there are a lot of times I was using it, and they're most certainly at the 80% mark, or even 90, you try and activate it, it wouldn't activate. I'm like, well, okay, this is kind of a pain in the butt. Or the problem is I inflict so much stun upon the enemy, even among pinnacle bosses, that I can take them from 60, 70% to almost 100% at a single hit, depending on what kind of hit that I do. So it's trying to play this timing game to be able to get it to work. When it does work, it's insanely powerful. It basically creates a copy of that particular unit, and you can damage both units at the same time. So if you have a big AoE, you can effectively do double the damage, which is great. And then you might be asking, well, why don't you go all the way over to this one, the Keystone passive? It's because I don't actually use any Keystones. Most of the keystones that are around here were, where was it? Scarred Faith. I tried this one out for a little while, and the problem is you're running around with no ES because no one does enough damage to actually recharge your energy shield, even if you have a significant amount of armor. I had 20, 25, at my peak 30,000 armor. The other one is Blood Magic, and it's not a terrible thing to have all your mana converted to life. Might simplify some things, but at the same time, during boss fights, I don't want to be spending all of that like all of my abilities on my life pool. I want to make sure that I can take the maximum amount of damage possible at any given time. So I don't mind going against my mana. And other than the fact I already have every node over here within a reasonable range that I didn't even want to get to begin with. And so I was like, well, okay, I don't necessarily care about that. And so, yeah, I just totally bypassed it. I went with the free skill point, and I went with 20% increased mobilization buildup. So obviously I use 2 weapon sets. The first weapon set for the Consecrate, I go for as much skill effect duration as I can. For obvious reasons, I want my Consecrated Ground to be able to last as long as possible. And then for my primary skill set, I basically pad towards as much damage as possible. As far as the pathing, I originally started off down here doing attack damage because I wanted to also get the damage taken recouped as life. I went with a bunch of these notes early on. It was probably fine going through the campaign, but late game, it just, you don't get a big enough life pool to be able to justify such a thing. So I eventually ended up switching it over to this side to get armor ES. I really wanted to avoid ES. I wanted to try and go all life. It's just getting 33 to 3400 life doesn't cut it. When I can have 2600 and even in bear form 5100, then by the time I apply an endurance charge, I'm at 56, 5700 ES. I mean, it's a significant amount more life. Walk the Paths Not Taken. Didn't talk about that one. That thing is incredibly good. Some of the nodes you can take here for a significant amount of crit chance. Very, very powerful. Took all those there. For the Rage, insanely powerful. I took these, and you might be asking yourself, well, why do you do minion damage? Well, it's because it just adds flat 15% increased damage, which is insanely good, because most things are either elemental or physical or a specific type of element or a specific type of damage. This is just flat damage. So yeah, getting 15, 30, 45, so basically getting the equivalency of 75%, crazy strong. I used to pad up here to get the crit damage bonus. I know that some people take the resonance from within Jewel to be able to plop yourself. Where is it? Over here someplace. Right here. And they take all these crit hit chance, crit damage bonus, etc. And some of these are very, very strong if you decide to go over there. I decided to go with a large timeless, or time loss, not timeless, but time loss sapphire for obvious reasons. I have so many major nodes and so many minor nodes. The 3% DS, very strong. That's a lot of energy shield. The flat crit damage bonus and the flat crit hit chance, along with the... Oh, yeah, that's it. It's just in a large radius. So I hit this one, I hit this one here, I hit that one, I hit this one, and this one. I'm mostly physical damage. And so that dictated which direction I decided to go. I go down here. I wanted, obviously, physical damage. And this also has a lot of skill speed. So we have skill speed over here. And then more physical damage over here. We need max rage. Max rage is important. And I'll get to that here in a moment. This was basically all defensive stuff over here, converting armor to elemental resistance. I mean, this one's a no-brainer. 3% increased attack speed for enemy close range is wild. And when you're surrounded, you just... I mean, nothing survives, even the Maul one hit, let alone any of my actual strong abilities. Very, very powerful. And yeah, immobilization build-up, that's a big deal. This is the one that's... it's so huge. 12% increased physical damage every 10 rage. So I have 81 rage in bear form. So that's 96% increased physical damage. There's almost no other single node damage-wise that even remotely compares when you're at max rage. And I'm at max rage almost all the time because I gain 10 to 12 rage a hit. These are all just defensive nodes here. Early on, I started off going down here and going heavy into armor. But these armor nodes, comparatively in PoE 2, are junk. 15% armor? Are you kidding me? 18% armor for a minor node? When the combination nodes are 12 and 12? It's not even a fair comparison. And they lose 6% armor, but you gain 12% DS? It's wild. I don't know what they're thinking. In PoE 1, most of these nodes would have be some sort of life hybrid, like life percent hybrid, or they'd have something else associated with them. You'd almost never have a node that's only 15% for a minor armor node. So I moved off of it because the difference between 20,000 armor and 30,000 armor felt negligible. I was still getting one shot early on by some of the Citadel bosses, but now just having a large ES pool and still having over 20,000 armor was a big deal. As I said, when I originally pathed up here, I stopped that and I decided, I was like, I want to get an additional jewel socket. I picked up a Megalomaniac. This one was about 400 divs. That's completely useless, but I was looking for these two nodes. This is a significant amount of crit damage bonus, more stun buildup, crit hit chance, big deal. This one max ES per 8 armor. As you know, my helm has about 1150 armor, so I mean it's like about 150 ES, 140 ES, which actually added almost 600 ES to my character. So from a defensive standpoint, that's incredibly strong. Plus it put me right next to a crit hit chance, crit damage bonus build, or cluster I should say. So in short, that's the skill tree. I'll put the POB in the comments, and let's take a look at the support gems. So obviously Maul is your default attack. Do attack speed, felt like a no-brainer for that. Do rage on melee hit, a no-brainer for that because I want to collect as much rage. This is my rage builder predominantly here. Then the next, just simply within close proximity, more damage. Then I wanted to get all my mana and additional lifesteal with this. This feels very, very strong. Being able to overleech with the leech effects are not removed. So if I get a couple hits or swings on a unit, then I go into Rampage, and Rampage actually consumes life instead of mana. Sometimes I don't even lose any life at all going into Rampage, even though the Rampage takes about 600 HP because this is still technically in effect. I still have Moment of Vulnerability in here. I don't use it anymore. My Consecrate, cast speed, just AoE all the way. That's what I use the expand for. This one is the one that adds the 30% less cooldown recovery rate. Doesn't work. I have no idea. It seems effective when I'm fighting against pinnacle bosses, and that's about the only time I lay this thing down. Then, of course, skill effect duration. So under this mode, 28.8 seconds. And it's 2.4 meters, but I'm not sure that actually includes this one as it continues to grow. Because I feel like this might be 2.4 meters. But by the time it expands after so many seconds, I feel like that's more than 2.4 meters. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Walking Calamity. Zoph's Pyre. It's a pretty cheap support gem comparatively. I think it's what, like 9 to 12 divs, somewhere in that realm. Just converting a lot of fire damage to chaos. That's great. More elemental. Fantastic. This is a perfect support gem for this thing. 30% more damage, even though it adds a cooldown of 10 seconds. Well, here's the deal. This thing lasts for more than 10 seconds. Lasts for 13.5. And so by the time the cooldown's even done, this thing's still going, and then I can be able to apply it again, and I have to build up to 50 caloric for it anyway. Skill effect duration is great. I use Rakiata's Flow. Originally, I had to use the support gem that reduces enemy fire resistance to 0, but I have the currency, so I was like, I'll add this thing in here too. Shockwave Totem. Shockwave Totems are surprisingly powerful. Skill effect duration felt like a no-brainer. Getting 2 of them over 1 also felt like a no-brainer. Giving them increased attack speed, vital, because they take advantage of the jagged ground that you can create with the Furious Slam, and you can see the damage bump goes from 18,000-ish to 68,000, and in some of the videos you can see that the totems hit, and it's a lot more than 68,000. It's probably, some of those totems I felt like hit in the million damage range or 2 million damage range on a single totem splash. I wanted it to be able to crack armor, so it can basically break armor for me, because when it did break armor, I used this thing, which is dirt cheap. It's like an Exalt, maybe less, I don't know. If this is the piece that breaks the armor, then it adds a permanent 5% increased physical damage taken, up to 20 as you can see, and it breaks more armor. So it works really well there. Rampage, I only use Rampage for mapping. For Rampage, it's all about the channeling for most of the support gems. So as you're channeling per second spent, gets up to 40% more damage, which is wild to think that it's that strong. Because most support gems don't get anywhere near 40%. I use Atulo's Bloodletting, probably butchered the name. Obvious reasons. This is one that I wanted to move to my life pool instead of my mana pool, because there are times where I try and cast this thing while surrounded. You get stunned, it burns your mana, you're out of mana. You can't cast it again because it took so much of my mana pool. So I burn the life, get stunned, then I can cast it again immediately, use a flask, and be able to get it down, and then recover everything that I just lost and then some. Plus the damage bonus of 40% is wild. And of course it burns, what, 600 mana? Somewhere in that realm. Where's the button? It is, yeah, burns 396 life. So not quite, almost the full 400. So it's about 38%. Yeah, this one, momentum, moving 2 meters, 40% more damage, wild. Rick Wall's Furiosity, 30% more damage on weapons at 2, also very powerful. Need increase AoE. For a while I was using Herald of Ice. I don't care about the AoE. I just one-shot almost everything while using Rampage anyway. Feels great. It's a good time. And so I didn't really need the Shatter. I didn't really feel a real need for it. Berserk, this is where I get a significant amount of my power from. So this thing, while it does drain 1.1% of your life per rage, so total for me, 8.1%, this thing's insanely strong. Increasing the effective rage by 72% is wild. I use this piece here to add plus 3 levels. Is it necessary to go from 69 to 72? Probably not really. Does it help out? Absolutely. Word of the wise, if you don't know this, make sure you deactivate this in slot 1. Otherwise, I'd be bleeding life just standing here. So yeah, if you go to here, you can pick and choose which weapon slots you want it to be active in case you didn't know. Moving on, charge rate regulation. Originally I used to use the armor plating or the scattered plating or whatever it's called, where when you break armor, you collect that armor to be able to gain more armor for yourself, up to 40% more. But going from 20,000 armor to 28,000 armor, just it didn't matter. I didn't notice any significant survivability from that aspect. This almost does the same thing. So when I have endurance charges, which I have them almost all the time when I'm actually using my slams, 18% more defenses, still gave me 3,600 armor, so bumping from 20 to 23.5. And then, yeah, it also gave me, 400 or 500 ES. 400 or 500 ES is worth a lot more than 5,000 armor. Eternal Rage, an absolute must. You have to have it. You want to be at max rage almost all the time. You don't want to have to be attacking to be able to use your rage or to be able to build up for Rampage. You want to walk around and then be able to go into Rampage immediately, or if you're waiting for the boss to go through their animations at the beginning, you want to be at max rage. Because no sense in wasting those 4 to 5 seconds to build up to max rage by attacking him with maul attack, when you can be at max rage the instant he comes down and be applying max damage right away. Plus, it'll help build up your glory, too, while you're waiting. I use Time of Need. This is a sleeper. This thing is very powerful, especially since I'm continually bleeding life. In this mode, it seems terrible, 13.68 seconds. In bear mode, it's actually 6.3, because I have so much increased duration on the secondary weapon. Well, I should say the primary. Once I got enough currency, I added a +1. Whoop-de-doo. Did I need it? No, probably not. Yeah, it's a lot more life per deal, and it did reduce the cooldown a bit. So almost 1,000 life every 6.3 seconds, and it removes all curses and elemental ailments. That's huge. And this is just simply reducing the skill duration, so it basically cuts the time down even further. Furious Slam, this is where the bulk of the damage comes in, right? We almost always cause in rage slams or create jagged ground. That's specifically for our totems. We use only the Toll's Embrace. Yeah, it's pricey, it's a couple hundred divs, but we need to be able to break armor. Breaking armor is huge, because breaking armor will get us into Furious Roar. This is just 35% more damage for every 10 rage spent. I almost will do 1, maybe 2 slams, and then to maul attacks and regain all rage, so losing the rage is not a big deal, and it's a huge damage bonus. The additional Aftershock, that's when you see if I did 3 to 4 million damage in a hit, and then it immediately triggers another 3 to 4 million damage after that. It's probably the Aftershock. The Aftershock just gives you a chance for that wonderful double damage. The Bifurcate, I feel like this thing's broken. If you don't know how this thing works, basically it increases your chance for a critical hit strike. But more importantly, what it does is it will basically roll 2 critical hit chances. And if they both land, you can potentially apply 2 critical hit chances at the same time. And it just says that you have a maximum of 50% with this. Then, of course, Overextend, just getting more critical damage bonus. Base is only 330. This bumps it up to 429. So this is where the bulk of the damage comes from. Ferocious Roar, which I don't always use. I don't care about the Ferocious Roar itself. I don't care about breaking armor or causing empowered attacks to break armor. I use Seismic Cry, which would cause the empowered attack Aftershocks to deal 10% more damage dependent upon enemy power within range. Unique bosses are 20 power. Then I also use Batter Shout, which I'm not entirely certain how that works. It consumes armor and then triggers a bunch of miscellaneous bits of damage in there. The problem is that I don't really use this that much when I use Walking Calamity against bosses because no one has the HP pool to survive. I've run 3-man maps, 3-man bosses where I'm doing the bulk of the damage, and I can chew through a 40 to 50 million HP unique boss, map boss, citadel boss in no time at all. And so it just, I don't know. I have a hard time justifying using both Walking Calamity and this, but if you need to, you can get some extra damage if you trigger Walking Calamity, do a couple of hits, apply Ferocious Roar after you've broken the armor, and then you can stack up significant amount of damage very, very quickly. And so, in short, that's the build. That's it. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I tried to rush through that as quickly as possible, and so I hope it was informative, and I hope it inspires some bear builds. There's not really a whole lot out there, and yeah, hope you guys have fun, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and you all take care.